I think we are live. Let's see. Okay. Wait just another minute to see if anyone else wants to join. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Nicole Cooper, and I am one of the coaches here at Working Against Gravity. So today I wanted to talk about injuries, both my own personal experience with injuries, as well as just kind of like what's happening in your body when you have an injury, what you can do to help yourself heal faster, and then just ways to stay positive and keep making progress, since injuries are not fun at all. So I'll start with my own experience. I haven't had a ton of injuries up until a little over a year and a half ago. I do CrossFit, and I was doing a rope climb, came down from a rope climb, and the rope was a little bit too long, landed kind of funny, and had like a shooting pain in my ankle. So went to urgent care that night. They thought it was just a sprain. I stayed off it for a couple days, and it slowly did get better for a couple months. Had some people look at it, went to the doctor. They said, yeah, it's just a sprain, it's fine. But it just, after a couple months, it was just still really bugging me. I would get shooting pains. And so I finally decided, like, we got to figure this out. And so I went to a sports medicine doctor, and I ended up getting an MRI and x-rays and all that, and I had an osteochondral talar lesion. So basically what that means is that the cartilage and the bone in my ankle was damaged, and I ended up having to have surgery. And so initially I was freaking out because I love training, I live a pretty active lifestyle, and I ended up having to have surgery. I was non-weight bearing for 6 weeks, so I was hopping around on crutches and on an e-scooter for quite a while, and I had surgery the day before Veterans Day, so it was, I believe, November 10th of last year. So I was non-weight bearing basically up until a day or two before Christmas, through Thanksgiving. Definitely kind of freaked out, thinking, oh my gosh, it's the holidays and I can't even work out. And so once I was able to get back on my feet, I was in crutches for a couple weeks, and then and just lightly walking on it, and then I had a boot, and then slowly transitioned back to regular exercise. But it was definitely a really new experience for me. It was tough, but I worked with my coach the whole time, and figured out ways to stay positive and kind of keep with a normal routine. And now I'm back to training with no pain, and just thought it might be helpful for people to share how to get through injuries, because I think we all have, whether it be a surgery or just a small nagging pain, but like those things can can really get in the way and feel like a big setback, but they don't have to be. So I wanted to talk about first kind of what's going on in your body with most injuries, and this isn't all. Everybody's a little different. But initially, say you have a fall or you sprain your ankle or something, or whatever part of your body it is, but we have some inflammation. And inflammation is not necessarily a bad thing. It might look like pain, swelling, redness, kind of feeling hot in that area. But it's completely normal, and inflammation is actually good and is your body's way of clearing out damaged cells. And so we don't need to worry about that. We do want to try to manage it, so this is where like ice might come into play and rest, but we don't need to eliminate it all the way because it's not a bad thing. So then the next step is fancy term called proliferation. So this is when the damaged tissues are being removed, and then the new blood vessels begin to develop. This is where like scar tissue might begin forming. So you might get like those clumps of hard stuff. But new tissues being formed, it's a good thing. But then, so after that, then we have remodeling. So what remodeling is that scar tissue hopefully begins to break down, especially if you're doing physical therapy or some type of exercise, so that things don't get too tight. And then type 1 collagen is laid down, and then this is much stronger, and this is where we hopefully rebuild and get back to where we were before surgery, or close to. And then same thing, like if you break a bone, this is where like the minerals are being deposited, and that bone builds up and hardens and gets stronger. So that's like a very basic overview of the healing process. But so I'm guessing most of you want to know, and I see more people are joining. Hello. But what can you do to help with this process? And of course, I'm not a medical professional, so always consult with your doctor if you have an injury or something that you're concerned about. So that is first and foremost most important. But right away, when we have an injury, the main thing that we can do is to help manage inflammation. So we don't want to eliminate it fully, like I said, but taking some pain relievers, so like Tylenol, Advil, NSAID, so just things to reduce pain and swelling, just for the first couple of days too. We don't want to be using those too long, because that can actually slow healing some. And then, so that's mainly the first couple days. So that's the main thing we're trying to do at first, manage inflammation. Rest can be good. Ice, just kind of staying off of it. And then the next couple things we can do, and there's 4 kind of main things we can do, and I like to combine 2 and 3. But 2 and 3 would be to support immune function, and then to support repair and rebuilding. So this is where like the food that you're eating comes in, your macros, working with your coach on what you can be doing. So I think that it can be really common when you have an injury to think like, oh, I'm not training as much, I don't need to eat as much, which yes, your macros may need to be adjusted depending on the type of exercise that you do or how active you're able to continue to be. But we do want to keep eating. So when you have an injury and you're trying to heal, it's not the time to stop eating or stop taking care of yourself, because your body needs those nutrients and those things to help yourself get better. And so we do want to be eating enough food. We don't want to be shorting too much on calories. Ultimately, talk to your coach. Your coach will be able to see how you're doing, look at what your specific goals are, and make adjustments if necessary. But the food and the nutrients that you eat are so important for healing, so we want to keep up with those. Another thing, too, is for a lot of people, when they're not working out as much or when their schedule changes, they may not be as hungry. So that's where you might want to look at actually having an eating schedule, so setting reminders in your phone to keep eating. Just things like that, eating at your normal times so that you can stay on top of it. Another thing that we can look at is trying to get in some anti-inflammatory fats. And so, and these would be coming from your fat macros, but naturally occurring omega-3s, monosaturated fats, so foods like flaxseed, chia seed, oily fish, olive oil, hemp seeds, avocados, nuts, probably a lot of things that many people regularly incorporate, but those can really help with inflammation. You can look at supplementing with fish oil, but I know personally I like to eat my fat macros, and so I'll stick with the foods. Another thing is to look at minimizing processed carbohydrates. So not saying like cut out all processed carbs altogether, but especially like processed carbs that are higher in sugar can lead to some inflammation, which can slow the healing process. So just looking at cutting down on those, you know, I like to go with like 80-20 or so 80% of my food is going to be from those whole food sources, and then, you know, you can have a treat here or there. So, another thing, and some of you might be doing this whether you're injured or not, is aiming to eat, you know, a serving or two of vegetables at each meal. And so a serving is going to look different for every person. But just keeping up with those and getting your micronutrients into, and when a couple servings of fruit a day can be really helpful too. And I will make sure to post all this in a note once the video is done too. So, another thing is to get all of your protein in. And so if you're injured and you're having a little bit harder time getting around, protein shakes can be good, which you can also throw some spinach in there and some berries and kind of double dip on getting your fruits and veggies into. Bone broth can be an easy way to get some of your protein in, and their stores sell some great pre-made ones if you don't want to make your own right now, or they already make them for you, I guess, not pre-made. But so that, as far as food goes, it's really the main idea is just sticking with whole foods as much as possible, eating all of your macros, not feeling like you need to short yourself, because you need those things for healing. So, I'll touch a little bit on supplementation. Of course, same thing, check with your doctor always before adding a supplement. And we do get a lot of these through Whole Foods too. So it's not always necessary to add additional supplements, but vitamin A can be a great option. It helps with inflammation and assists in collagen formation, so rebuilding that bone or a muscle or whatever you've injured. Vitamin C can also be a great option. Let's see. Also good for immune function. I think most of us have probably grown up hearing that. Zinc can actually be really helpful for tissue regeneration and repair. And that's not, I think, a supplement that many of us regularly take. Creatine can be another good one. So 5 grams or so a day of creatine can help with healing. And then as far as kind of like seasoning spices, turmeric and garlic can help with inflammation too. So maybe playing around with some of the spices and things that you cook with, getting a little creative in the kitchen too. So those are the first 3 things: managing inflammation, how we can support immune function, and then support repair and rebuilding. But then I think one of the hardest things to do when you're injured is to stay positive, and just kind of get through that tough time. And so I wanted to touch on that. So my 4th thing is staying positive and talking to your coach. Reaching out to your coach as little or as often as you need to. So maybe it's once a week in your weekly check-ins, or maybe it's once a day, just like, hey, I'm hanging in there, whatever you need to do. So a big thing for staying positive that I found to be helpful and that I some of my clients have found helpful is to do your best to keep somewhat of a normal routine. So this can look different. Maybe your normal routine as far as your foods. So I talked about having an eating schedule, setting a timer if you need to, sticking with your normal meals to keep yourself in a routine. I think for many of us too, like the gym and the people that we see at the gym can be such a big part of our routine too. And so even if you are having to modify workouts or do things differently, still getting to the gym a couple days a week. So maybe if you usually go 5 days, maybe we do cut it back down to 3, but still keeping up with that, just getting out there and talking to people, doing what you can, keeping up with your check-ins too, is especially important because we, as coaches, we can't help you if we don't know what's going on, and so just keeping us in the loop on what's going on, and even if exercise is a huge part of your life, and even if a lot of your goals are related to whatever type of activity you do, we can still keep making progress even without, having to cut back on that. And so keeping your coach in the loop about everything that's going on, but really just trying to, just because you're injured and just because your workouts or one area of your life has to change, doesn't mean that life is over for that time. You can still keep up with your routine, and stay up with that. Another thing that can be helpful with staying positive is to focus on the things that you still can do. So, I think for most of us, when something's not going right, whether we're injured, we tend to see what the bad things or what's not going well. And so, what things can you still do? So say your ankle's hurt, or your knee or a lower extremity is hurt. What upper body exercises can you still do? What types of cardio can you still keep up with? Maybe if it's your upper body, you can still run, you can still go for walks. Just sit down and come up with a list of those things that you can do, because I think you'd be surprised, whether the injury is big or small. There still are a lot of things you can do to stay active, get your blood flowing, and just keep with your normal routine. Focus on the food you can eat. And another big thing too that I think we can forget about when we're injured is it can be a great time to focus on other areas of your life too. So maybe it's spending more time with your family. Maybe it's spending more time with friends, getting a project done around the house that you might not usually make time for. But it can be a great time to, if you're taking a step away or having to take a break from your workouts or things, maybe you do something that has been sitting on the back burner for a while. So that's a big thing, is focusing on the things you can do in other areas of your life that you might not usually spend a bunch of time on. And then a big thing is just resting and knowing it's okay to take a break. A couple weeks, a couple days, even a couple months of having to take a step back from your usual routine feels like a lot in the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, and in your entire life, your whatever sport you do, your time as an athlete, a couple weeks or a couple months is not a lot of time, and you can get back to where you were. It's just, it's okay to rest every now and then. You'll be back to your routine soon enough, and the rest of the world doesn't slow down just because, your bubble of life does. So, just staying positive, talking to your coach, and then focusing on hitting your macros and your food quality are big ones to help with injuries. So, are there any questions or anything? Don't know. Okay. Hi, Brittany. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Sheila. Okay. So I'll hang out for just another second to see if there's any questions. I'll also post kind of a general rundown of what I talked about as far as supplementations and things that you can focus on goes. But yeah, I mean, your life doesn't have to change too much just because you are hurt. Okay. Let's see. Did I do that right? Okay. Well, I am going to get going. I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully part of this was helpful. Gave you some ideas of things to focus on. And these are things that you can focus on even if you're not hurt too. So, yes. Nice talking with you all. Bye.